Hello, everyone. Transfer window is done and dusted. It's been a crazy week or two, but we are back with a few more transfers you may have missed. So we are going to get straight into it. Joe, who is your first player?
Yeah, pretty wild window. Last few days was pretty chaotic. Haven't really had a chance to delve into the deadline day moves, and I think we'll do a transfers you might have missed of those players. But a little bit before that, Middlesbrough signed an Argentinian, which is not the norm. I think it's fair to say, but Martin Payero, who signed a £6 million transfer to Middlesbrough until 2024. He's 1998 born. He's a very, very big transitional player. Plays as sort of a creative number 8 slash number 10. And conveniently, he's been given the number 10 shirt at the Riverside. I think he hasn't played an awful lot of football so far, but I think that was, it's part and parcel of the bedding in process. He registers plenty of assists at his previous club, Banfield. He's a very good player when it comes to sort of progressing the play with the ball at his feet. He's a very big progressive carrier. Likes to make those runs. Quite tall. Good at bringing the ball forward out of midfield, out of defence. With his tall but slender frame. And there's this sort of a little niche to his game where he likes to play into the right hand half space. If he's making a pass or making a run forward, typically he will look for a player who's in that space on the edge of the opposition's box. So, if his Middlesbrough teammates can sort of tap into that, then that could be a really rich seam for them to exploit this season in the Championship. And we've seen how typically other creative South American players like Yacine Adli have done in the Championship, and I've got hopes for him once he gets some minutes under his belt that he could be a really serious signing, because £6 million for a club that haven't been in the Premier League for around 5 years is a serious investment to make if you're not fully sold on that player. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him. And I suppose it's been a bit of a change, given that he came straight from the Olympics with Argentina's under-23s in Tokyo to Middlesbrough. So yeah, I expect that there might be a little bit more of the bedding in process, but I'm hoping that we can see another sort of Juninho style coup at the Riverside.
Who's their manager at the moment?
Neil Warnock.
So that betting in process could be not quite instant, but Neil Warnock does have a good record with bringing teams up from their championships, so there is a good chance that he might play an influential role later in the season, especially when they've spent that much money on him.
Yeah, Warnock compared him to Victor Camarasa when he signed him for Cardiff. So, I mean, I know that Camarasa is now at Real Betis. I don't know whether they're comparable in nature, or whether it's just a sweeping statement from Warnock. But yeah, he seems as though he's had sort of a say in this transfer. It's not a boardroom edition. Although I imagine it will have been directed by sort of the scouting heads. So yeah, it's one which I'm intrigued about more than excited about. I'm curious to see how it'll get on, because it doesn't seem like a transfer that makes sense on paper. But then again, sometimes those moves are the ones which end up being the most fruitful.
Yeah. Perfect. All right, my first player, and if you followed me on Twitter for a while, you won't be too surprised, and this probably won't be a transfer you missed. But one of my absolute favourites, and that is Yacine Adli, who moved from Bordeaux to Milan. I think it was in the region of 8 to 10 million euros, and he'll spend this season on loan again with Bordeaux. But he is an absolute gem, and I'm still shocked that there weren't many more clubs in for him at this price. Last season, he was one of the most aggressive pressers and active defenders in the league in France, and that was probably a quite surprising thing, because coming through as a youth player with PSG, he was a lot more of a creative attacking midfielder, that would make a lot of assists, has a really nice passing range. But since moving to Bordeaux, he's kind of developed himself and rounded his game out a lot more, become a much more reliable defensive presence, and he's started to play more as a kind of like a number 8 or a deep lying ball progressor than as a number 10, which he did through his youth career. So this one, yeah, for me, it was an absolute snip at that price. I'm expecting big things, and I think he's going to have a great season back on loan with Bordeaux as he just finishes that last gradual step of his progression from that creative midfielder into a strong, creative, deep-lying midfielder, and one that can really be relied upon defensively. So it's been a big transformation, but it's been a really, really successful one. And with Bordeaux under a bit of financial pressure, Milan have snuck in and got themselves quite the deal here, I think.
Do you think that the loan that he's going to stay, as in he's going to stay at Bordeaux for a year, do you think that loan's going to be quite beneficial to him in terms of acclimatizing to the level that's going to be expected of him at Milan?
Yeah, well, I think Milan are still in themselves in the middle of a little bit of a transitional period. Even though we saw them last year look like they were in with a fight for the title, I still think that their squad has some smoothing out to do and lacked a little bit of depth. So I think another year at Bordeaux should serve him well. He's still, I think, 21 or 22 now. And he can still perfect his game, and he's still learning the tools of the trade of that deep lying role that he has only really played for around a season or so. But yeah, I'm expecting the transition once he does arrive at Milan to be quite smooth as well. So yeah, he's got fantastic technique, fantastic passing range, and he's developing as a defensive player. So I think he is ready made for the step up, and hopefully for him it'll be at a strong Milan that are ready to compete for a title, and hopefully for them qualifying for the Champions League again.
Yeah, definitely. The next player on my list is a forward. I've just realised, Steve, that we've done two sort of creative number 8s and two centre forwards here. So nice little bit of symmetry. But I've gone with Myron Boadu, and this was one which I actually missed for about 2 weeks or so. I didn't even clock that he'd moved from AZ Alkmaar to AS Monaco. He signed a 5-year deal until 2026, costing around 18 million euros. But he's 2001 born. And at Scouted, I think it's fair to say, like yourself with Adli, we've been very big fans of Boadu for some time. He's scored absolute hatfuls in the Netherlands, but has been, he was beset by quite a couple of big injuries early on in his career. I think he did his ACL in 2017, then dislocated his ankle in 2018. Both of those required corrective surgery. And then, so between August 2017 and April 2019, I think he missed around 460 days or something or thereabouts, around 70 AZ games. So to have missed that amount of football and yet still be considered to have been one of the most prolific strikers in the Netherlands in that period is some endorsement, I think. But in terms of his style and what he's going to bring to Monaco, he's a quick, rangy, technically very good forward, very good off both feet, which I think is hugely important for a player who's predominantly going to play, off either that left-hand side or in the penalty area. But yeah, I think it was 14 goals, 6 assists in 2019-20, 15 goals, 1 assist in 2020-21 in the Eredivisie. And then that was before you saw how many he scored and assisted in the Europa League. And that consistency after those prolonged injuries is something which is really encouraging. I mentioned just there about how he can play off the left as well, and I suppose it's quite important to be a little bit versatile. And he'll come off into the left hand channel and drive at defenses, not too dissimilarly to sort of what Mason Greenwood does on the other side. And as I was saying, he's good off both feet. He's got nice variety in his finishes as well. And his penalty box awareness, I think, is quite adept because typically if you see a striker who's good at playing on out wide as well, maybe their movement or their know-how, that striker positioning maybe isn't as honed or crafted as an out and out 9. But with Boadu, I think it is, and that adds to that versatility, which is why I think that the 18 million euro fee is actually quite small, especially for a club like Monaco, to sign someone who potentially already is a player whose market value is higher, but without those injuries, a few clubs may have been warded off. But if you service him in that central channel inside the penalty area, if you service him in the 6-yard box, that service will turn into goals. And even if Monaco don't prefer to play him in that central role, playing him as sort of that left-sided forward, I don't want to make direct comparisons, but the movement isn't too dissimilar from Kylian Mbappe when he gets going. So there's a nice little Monaco link there. Had to get a little one in with the fast break counters, but there'll be a nice little AZ reunion this season in Liga because Calvin Stengs also moved to Nice. So I'll definitely be keeping an eye on that game in particular if I don't catch everything that Boadu does.
Yeah, I still think the recovery from those two horrific injuries is one of the more incredible things that I've seen in terms of returns from ACLs, especially. Normally, you don't see players return and quite reach the same heights. And for him, he hadn't really burst onto the scene yet, but the level he's been able to reach since those injuries is quite astounding. And then, with Stengs, the breakup of that AZ team was inevitable, but it's now it feels a bit strange to see them now being scattered all over Europe. But they'll all be worth following in the next 12 months or so. But on to my last player, who has spent probably the last 4 years being scattered around Europe, and that is Lukas Nmecha, who has signed for Wolfsburg in the Bundesliga from Manchester City. It's been quite the ride for him. He's been on radars for quite a long time. He dominated at youth level for City as a big-bodied striker that really was just physically too good for youth football. But over the years, he spent a couple of seasons on loan in the Championship, I believe, with Preston, and didn't quite pop as he was doing so at youth level. Probably that the physicality that helped him so much at youth level didn't quite give him the same level of dominance in senior football, but he's slowly built his career up. Last season was a very successful one for him at Anderlecht in Belgium. He scored, I think it was 13 or 14 goals, a few penalties, but he really excelled there. Their fans, I believe, were desperate to have him return. But Wolfsburg snagged him for, I think, 8 million euros in quite a cut price deal. He's gone from strength to strength. I think he's already scored a late winner off the bench in his Bundesliga debut recently in May or early June. Won the under-21 Euros with Germany, which came after winning the under-19 Euros with England a few years earlier. He's going to be a very reliable penalty box striker for a long time. Maybe not quite for the elite level clubs, but he'll probably move to a few good clubs around Europa League and Champions League level over the next 10 years or so and be quite a reliable goal scorer. He's big-bodied, as we've said, but he's also very mobile, hits the channels well, excellent shooting technique, reliable penalty taker. I'm excited to see what he does at Wolfsburg. He's left a good first impression with that winner. Now it'll be interesting to see him kick on at a Wolfsburg team, which expected to do some pretty good things this year, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, we had him in our team of the tournament, didn't we, for the under-21 European Championships, because he was so imposing. And I think you mentioned that bit about his physicality. That really showed when he was playing for Germany, Germany's under-21s. Because while it was an under-21 Euros, it was a youth international tournament. It's against players who've got vast, top-level experience. And I think he'll be absolutely fine in the Bundesliga from that respect. I think a lot of the time you do see players who maybe are standouts at under-23 football in the UK who then go into the Championship or into League One, and they just don't quite cut it at that level. But it's because at that time they're not physically ready. They don't have the know-how. I mean, it's maybe not on the same level, but it's comparable with Ike Ogbo, who had a few loans around the EFL when he was a lot younger, and now at sort of 22, 23, he finally got some goals and games under his belt at Roda in the Netherlands, and then Cercle Brugge, and now he's gone to Genk. So it's all about timing of that development, and I think Nmecha is a good example of that. That it was always going to happen, but it just had to be facilitated in the right place. And right now, I think Wolfsburg is the right place for him.
And it just also takes time for that style of player to mature into senior football as well.
Yeah.
As I said before, when you have relied on your physicality as a key aspect of your skill set as a youth footballer, when that trait isn't as dominant when you step into playing with senior bodies, it already puts you on the back foot. And I think that his game doesn't lack from the technical aspect, but it's not a standout trait that's going to step in for him when he isn't at that level physically that he's going to be dominating at the senior level. So, but now those two things are matched up. He's physically right there where he needs to be in terms of competing, and he's also very mobile and has all the technical quality that he needs to be a really efficient penalty box striker. So, as I said, expecting some really, really good things for him this season. Thanks for joining us again. We'll hopefully be back very early next week with 4 more transfers that you or we may have missed from deadline day. Until then, take care and stay safe.